I learned that early on. We had a celebrity endorse a product at one point, and I think we got like 3 million views on that product. And like literally we had to check and make sure the shopping cart was working because there was no sales, none. The junior editor position's going away, but you have these tools so you can kind of jump to a senior editor position pretty quick if you understand how to use the tools and know how to prompt it.
With me today, I have Will Feldman. He's the founder of Garlic Media Group. He's an Emmy-nominated director and producer, host of the Regenerative Inspiration podcast. And today we'll talk about what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur, how to impact people's lives, specifically with video production. Will, how are you feeling today?
I feel great. Yeah, really good. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me on.
Let's start with the first part, which was the successful entrepreneur. Walk me through the journey. What have you done so far, and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, I have an interesting journey because I've changed careers. And so I didn't know really what an entrepreneur was until after I graduated college. But 8th grade, I picked up a camera. At that time, I wanted to be a National Geographic photographer. And that, my dad said, hey, that's a really difficult job. If you want to have a family, you'll be away. And I'm like, I love photography. It was a passion. So I always had a camera with me my entire life, pretty much. And so 9th grade, I hurt my back in wrestling. I was a wrestler and ended up getting help from chiropractic. My family is a chiropractic family. I decided to go that route. And so I became the 13th of 24 chiropractors in my family. So that is a very interesting career to start with, right? And so along the way, I went through school, did all my pre-med, got through, I went to school in Atlanta at Life University. I saw a guy with a huge lens and I'm like, wait, how do you get that lens? I just wanted to see the lens, right? It's this $4,000 or $5,000 lens shooting a track and field event. And I said, hey, how do you get that seat? Just jokingly. So he comes over to the fence and says, you like to shoot? Yeah. I'm like, yeah. He's like, you got your own gear? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you want to shoot this tomorrow? And he gave me like 11 rolls of film. Okay, film. And so I got a pass and shot that, turned it in. I told him I'd never done this professionally before, but I love the idea. A week and a half later, I got the job because he was the boss and whoever was supposed to be at that event had not shown up. So sometimes you just have to like step into that opportunity. So I got to work as a PR photographer for about 3.5 years. It was during the heyday of Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta's resurging right now, but it was like when the Olympics were there. And so I got to shoot like 13 different Olympic teams, the Naismith Awards, all sorts of galas. And I got to learn how to do things around PR, photography, marketing in general. It was also a time, dating myself here a little bit, when the .coms were showing up. And so emails, forms, all sorts of different stuff. And so those are things that I think early on understood how the internet was going to be such an amazing marketing tool and weapon per se to be able to utilize as a platform. And then ultimately visuals, as the internet got faster and faster, were going to be much more powerful, and video supersedes all of them in my opinion. And so that's something that that's where we're at today. So after I got my into my second profession 16 years ago, I started Garlic Media Group. We have just grown since then. So yeah, it was an interesting journey. There's a lot more to it, but I don't want to keep going on that.
So 16 years ago is when you started Garlic Media Group. With Garlic Media Group, what do you predominantly focus on today?
Yeah, so typically we've felt again that content was the most important thing in any marketing strategy. So we've always had strategies. We've always worked with companies to create those strategies. Always been able to implement the full marketing strategy from web build to implementation, but ultimately the focus on video and content has been our real big side of things. So we work a lot with tech companies, a lot with healthcare companies. We have major companies that we're global vendors for, like SAP, for example. We have hospital systems that we've worked for. We've worked with a lot of CPG or consumer product goods companies. Did a lot of lifestyle type products early on, especially because we were based in Colorado, and still do. We do a lot of pet products and things too. But ultimately, I guess we hit about every vertical. We've worked with about every industry. I think that's it's kind of unique for what we are, but we're a full production house and a digital agency, so we're able to to not only work alongside a brand agency if they want to use us for just content creation, we're also able to work alongside, mid-market companies and ultimately be almost like an outsourced marketing department where they can utilize different services and things that they might need, more a fractional type of base, but ultimately being there as an extension of their company.
So when you're looking at all these different verticals, and you're focusing more on the video production of these for the businesses, what is one or the top three ones that are your claim to fame? These are the best ones that I've done that I'm so proud and happy and I share with people all the time.
Yeah, so that's a good question. That I'll bring up three. So one is we did a high alpine documentary for Breckenridge, the mountain, talking about like basically how they had more upper alpine footage, or sorry, not footage, area than any other U.S. or North American ski resort, and that was really cool. I mean, you're basically lugging your gear up, to I think we were up at about 13,080 feet. I think that's the highest one that was there. So we had, so think about like, not only was there not a lift there, we had to hike it with all of our gear, tripods, everything else. I know one tripod went flying after somebody wiped out and flew down the hill. But that was a really cool one. It got some awards. I can't remember which ones, but that's out there. There was another really cool one, actually, now that we're on skiing. It was actually for Bumble. It was the Bumble Figure 8 competition, and this was a live production that was basically being filmed on the backside of Aspen Mountain. And so it was fresh snow. Figure 8 competition is where you basically are taking two skiers, making perfect figure 8s down the hill, and so they needed that fresh, snow. Problem is there was no cell range, there was no anything, so we had to have comms, so satellites to beam like the content from our drone, as well as three other cameras that were shooting it live, down to another satellite that had a clear view of the sun deck, and then down to the city of Aspen, where there was a live crew watching, as well as then it was going out wherever worldwide. And then we also had to have radio comms as well, so that was a whole nother scenario, so we could communicate all the way down too if we needed to like cut or shoot or whatever. So that was really fun. There was another one that we did in Ohio, and this was for it was for Suma Health, actually. It was a brand video, and it was basically something that we thought they had all the actors set up and all the different locations and everything else. So we got there and like literally nothing had been. There was some doctors that had volunteered then, and so literally we're scrambling because we flew in, even though I'm from Ohio actually, so that helped a lot because I recruited family and friends and stuff like that as actors. But we were able to shoot all these different scenes and all these different things like within like literally it was like we were shooting a skateboard ramp or a bowl, and all of a sudden the Goodyear blimp came behind it. I mean, you can't even time that, right? We were finishing like we were going to this like covered bridge. We're like, we don't have any actors, but then two people came up on a bike and we're like, hey, can we film you coming through the bike? The perfect lighting. We walk away from that, going back to the car, and somebody's unloading a horse. And so we're like, hey, can we film you on the horse? And it's like, so nobody has any idea. Like it looks like this was a 2-week, like you would have to set everything up, and portion of the time, but it was like one thing after another. It just worked out really well, So anyway, I would say that was a fantastic shoot as well. So that's those are three. There's a lot more, but I mean, I think that those are the fun ones.
Those are definitely one of the fun ones. Now, when you're doing these video productions, typically, what do you advise for your clients to say, look, this is the highest ROI you would have if you do these videos? Is that ads? Is it customer success stories? What does that look like that you always advise for your clients?
First of all, you have to have a great place where your brand, your image, your messaging is all consistent. Okay, so first of all, if you don't have that, it doesn't matter what you put out there. They're going to come back, they're going to see conflicting information, and then they're going to go away. But with that said, if you have like that for the most part set, customer success videos, patient success videos, 100% best return on investment of any video that we see. There's not even anything close. So, I mean, do you need to have your brand video? Yes. Do you need to have maybe an explainer video? Maybe, some other things where there's some, some stuff that you have to like show. Do you need to have ads? Yes. But customer success, like if you can have a 60-second, a 2-minute, even a 3 to 5 minute, if it's an engaging story and it gets, somebody either tear up or like it really emotionally engages you in a great way, that makes you happy or this, like that is by far the best return on investment I've seen for any of our clients in 15 years, so 16 years. So it's like, that is important. Now, you can also create a campaign where you have like 15-second or 30-second teasers pulling people in, even 5-second teasers pulling people in. Do you have to have a celebrity? No, it helps, but it's not that important. People want to be able to associate with who's on camera, and they want to have that meaningful like engagement is really what it comes down to. So that is the best,
Now, if we're looking at someone saying like, I want to create a good customer success story video, do you have a structure or components that every customer success story should have?
Yeah, I would say it's a rough, because some of them changed and depend on the industry. But first of all, find somebody that you want more of, right? So if you have a certain product or a client that you really love, like figure out who is happy with your product, ask that person, will you go on camera? And then capture that. I mean, it could be as simple as like what we're doing here. It's not as like sexy per se. Like if you like, if it's, let's say it's a, I don't know, tractor product or something. I mean, it could be like, I'm out on a tractor, you're showing the hard work, you're showing the spread on the route, and I'm telling you how great this product is and how it changed my life. Other people that are driving tractors are going to want that product, right? So it's like you have to make it relatable in that way. And I think that's something a lot of people don't do. That they might just get a testimonial like this right here, and it's good. It's good. It's a solid thing. I mean, if you were to go back in time, I mean, it was great to just have like a written testimonial. If you put your initials, it was somewhat believable. If you put your full name, it was believable. But if you get somebody on a video, it's really believable because you can tell that that's not faked, not yet. Almost with AI. So it's almost, I think you could probably almost get away with it now with AI, unfortunately, but it's still more believable. It's harder to fake. And so I think that's what people want to relate to. So the things I would say are this: find somebody that you want more of, like as a client base. Find somebody that's a good story, right? What happened? Did it save their life? Did it change them? Did it give them more time to be with their kids? Did it like help their work life? Did it give them a promotion? What good thing? Is there something measurable? That's very, very important on the technology side of things. Like, okay, it increased this 30%. It decreased my, time spent on this 20%, whatever those metrics are. Make sure you have some of those, because people still want to see that. They will buy on the motion, but they want to make sure that they're making the right decisions. So the statistics and data over here, they will back it up, if that makes sense. And so also good audio, good visuals, good lighting, that's all really, really important. So, I mean, sometimes you can't do anything but get somebody captured at like a conference, and that's okay. There's a lot of ways to clean up the sound a bit, but if there's competing noise, people get irritated and they don't want to watch it, right? So the best presentation is also really important.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And there's also leading questions. I mean, you don't want people scripted that aren't actors, right? So like people need to have authentic answers. So leading questions is really important, right? So having them answer the question in their answer is really important, because they're not going to hear you, right? So we typically make most videos, at least customer success, with people literally just talking into the camera, and then we're cutting. If they make a mistake, they know it's not live, making sure that they're calm, not sweating, their hairs, they're buttoned up, whatever. Like, I mean, you gotta look at all that stuff. I mean, because it's going to be seen on camera, and if you like miss something, you might not be able to use it. So pay attention to the details on set, and then also, again, keep that engaging conversation going, like in a very conversational manner, and have 8-10 leading questions that are going to bring them into it. How did this improve your life? Why did this make something? Would you make sure you say, would you refer this to somebody else? Because you have to get them to say that. So don't forget about the key things.
Don't forget about the key things. Now, when you started going through the details of what is a good customer success story and how does that video look like, the first thing you mentioned was the place, that you have a good landing place, or a place where you put your online assets, your website. When you do this for clients, what is a good landing place? How does that look like, so that people can understand that?
Yeah, and unfortunately, it depends, right? It depends on the type of client. You want, if it's a product and you want them to buy that shoe or, shirt or whatever it might be, you want to get them to that decision really fast. So it's like, okay, here it is, boom, I love this, it's changed my life, however that might be, and then click here, buy now, right? I mean, you want them to like land, see the video, convinced, buy. Like other people, it's a little bit longer, right? So if you're selling like a ERP implementation to a CTO, and he has to convince somebody else on their team, like they need more information. So then you need to have not only that video that pulls them into a longer video, but you need to be able to have all the information they might need for their presentation to the board or presentation to their team or whatever that might be. So there's a little bit of difference there. But really, if you can bring them back to your website, I mean, that's the key for most businesses. You want them to know where you are, how to get to you, buy your stuff. I mean, if you're pizzeria, it's a little different than if you're selling a product online. But it's like you still want them to know who you are, where you're at, what you got, and somehow get them to engage. Whether that's capturing an email at the least, so you can keep remembering. Because keep in mind that if you're pulling people into Facebook or YouTube or whatever, they own your population that you do not. They can shut you off and it's gone. Okay. So phone number, email, only thing that you really have access to that you own, right? I mean, unless you have their, address. I mean, I didn't want to send them mail, but I think that those are the things that people forget about. And like all of a sudden their account overnight is gone. They had 1 million people and like they're starting over. And that's really, hopefully you can get it back. But I mean, it's heartbreaking if you lose a huge audience and you have to build it again.
So the right way to think about it is you have to own your audience, because the social media platforms do own your audience. So get the phone number, get an email to bring them back to your website, because they might need more information and they might want to present it to a couple of decision makers, and then come back again and talk about it. And then if they have an email, you can reach out to them and keep them in the loop. Now, some of the stuff that you are going through here, explaining, talking about the social media platforms, and one of them being YouTube. Have you seen a different approach when you're doing something for someone's website versus this is what we're going to do on the podcast? So this is what we'll do for YouTube when it comes to our videos, when it comes to the shorts.
I would answer that in a couple ways. So on a podcast is a very different than like product based, right? So podcast is there to build more of a reputation about who you are, who your leadership is, how you approach things, do different things like that. And that's important because it brings authority to who you are and who you surround yourself with. I think Tony Robbins said it, proximity is power. Like who you in proximity with, it tends to lend credibility to you, right? And so the video side of things there's a couple things on package there, because I mean in YouTube you could have ads, you could have like shorts, you could have longs. I mean anything over 10 minutes is like a long, anything under 10 minutes is short, even though we kind of think of like TikTok now of 15 seconds to 30 seconds as a short. Like my son, he'll get like 600,000 views on some short of something that's trending. He'll just do the same voiceover or whatever else, and it's like, I mean, I wouldn't watch that, but somebody is, so somebody's scrolling. He says his audience is like 30 and 40-year-olds, so I'm like, I don't know, it's so weird, but you never know where it's gonna go. But ultimately I think from that standpoint, you want to think about your audience, think about who you want to watch it. And it doesn't matter if 10 people watch your video and they all engage with you. If you've got a good product, that's a good sales, like good ticket number, that's a win. It doesn't matter if there's millions of people that watch you and then don't engage. Like, I think that's something that a lot of entrepreneurs are like, oh, I got 1 million views, but they got no sale. I learned that early on. We had a celebrity endorse a product at one point, and I think we got like 3 million views on that product. And like literally we had to check and make sure the shopping cart was working because there was no sales, none. I mean, so like, it doesn't matter the views, it matters the engagement and the interaction and bringing it over to a sale or conversion of some sort, right? So keep it in mind, you got to test everything, in my opinion. So I'm not saying celebrity endorsements aren't good, because they certainly are, but that particular one did not work. So
Now, when we're looking at a medium like YouTube and we're looking like a podcast, you want to think about your audience, and I feel like this is also for when you create ads, when you're doing any sort of advertising or marketing for your business. Have you seen have you seen a trend where people are moving from one platform to another platform? Are you noticing what people are preferring more to invest marketing or to invest more of their advertising spend when it comes to like visual and video ads or stuff like that?
yeah, that's again a very good question. And I think it really depends on your audience and your product. So there are a lot of people that are moving towards the TikTok trend, right? There's been some ups and downs, whether it's going to be banned or whether it's going to be a US based or whatever, we don't necessarily know, but the audience is still there. I've always looked at marketing, and I don't know where I heard this before, but as ponds. Like if you got a pole in the pond, you're fishing, right? And so to me, you do have to test each pond to see if the fish are biting, right? Or your ad is working, or whatever mode of marketing is working. But if you find one that's actually you're catching, push in there. Like you need to push in where you're winning, and that's something I think a lot of people think, oh, I've got something over here, let me duplicate it over here. It might not work. Like, so, I mean, TikTok is a different audience for the most part than like Facebook, right? And Instagram's a little bit different, right? And so the two of them are somewhat similar, but the buying patterns on Instagram are different than Facebook, right? And so, and the same thing with YouTube. Like it can be, it's an ad, because you don't necessarily know if somebody's streaming that ad on their big screen TV at home or if it's on their phone. So if it's on their big screen, like they're not going to click to engage. If it's on their phone, they are, so you have to think about how that is there. And there's different ways of pushing ads and things like that, but there's a complexity to how you do it. So you really have to think through who that target audience is and the best vehicle, and ask advice. I mean, nowadays you can chat GPT about anything, and it may be right or wrong. It's hard to know sometimes, but look for statistics, look for articles, look for the trending of how to convert. Like, because by the time this is even published, it could be a little bit out of date, to be honest. Everything is moving so fast. It's unbelievable. And you have X, which is a different audience altogether as well. I mean, if you're a conservative side, there's the Rumbles of the world. There's other places where you might want to be like advertising instead of, over here. I mean, you have to think about who your audience is. So that's my highest suggestion.
I see how it's a good suggestion the way you're saying, like, see what works for conversion, not just for views or for a trend, because these things change, and we've been on the fence for TikTok, I think, for the whole year. We don't know if it's going to be banned, bought, changed, stopped. It is just keep going back and forth. So if you are someone that put all your eggs in one basket, you're sweating. So it's a good way of thinking, like, see where it works in terms of conversion. Now, the final question, I'm going to talk about the video stuff, and then we'll switch to something else. When it comes to AI, because you mentioned a couple of times, and Sora and View with Google coming out, where do you see video AI nowadays and going forward?
Yeah. Well, you might not have known this, but I actually had an AI video company that we started in 2018. So we had the idea early on. Sora has a ton of money, so there's a lot of different, you can't beat $1 billion in my opinion, but there's still niches there, right? So from a standpoint of within a video production house, like I guarantee that we are probably tripling our production rate from 3 to 4 years ago. Okay, so that's the significant amount, and we're leveraging AI every day. Like we're leveraging it for sound, we're leveraging it for color, we're leveraging it for even cuts, like from 3 to 4 cameras on a podcast. It'll automatic. I mean, most of that's kind of software, but there is some AI applications to it. But it's editing and putting it into a timeline. We are always testing stuff, so there's always something new. So if somebody out there that hears this has something new and you want me to test it, I'm happy to test it. We don't put it into full production until we know that it works. But I ultimately, we have another one that we're working on right now that hopefully will cut about 30% of our time from a standpoint of like taking the footage and logging the footage, as well as then putting it into an initial timeline where we can start and take the edit from there with our senior editors. So it's kind of basically replacing the junior editor, unfortunately. And I think, if you are an editor out there, know that the junior editor position is going away, but you have these tools so you can kind of jump to a senior editor position pretty quick if you understand how to use the tools and know how to prompt it. And so the AI portion of utilizing dogs to talk and different stuff like that, I think they're entertaining. I don't know that they're engaging in selling yet. I think there's this cool factor to it. That will probably go away at a certain point unless it's really realistic. I think that there's a lot of hype, a lot of things are getting pushed. I can't really tell you which one is better because they keep leaping over each other, and it's hard to know which one is going to be ahead of the next one next week, because a new update comes out or something. But I think that in general, the key from even just text to video is going to be really, really important on how you prompt it, and think about from a standpoint of, okay, I'm a Fortune 500 CMO, and I am coming up with this campaign. Think about it from that direction. Relate this to other successful, campaigns that have happened out there. Give me 10 ideas that I can see. Boom. Now you have 10 ideas you can look at. You can start to say, okay, that one actually makes sense for me. Now you can start to work on it to get it even further refined. But the prompting on AI is so, so important on how you preface it. I was on a podcast a couple weeks ago, and it was really cool because we were talking about it, and it's the prompting side of it is actually helping you become a better leader because you're really understanding how to define and put clearly defined directions out there and instructions. And I think that is such a key element to leadership, is that you really have this idea of what you want and then clearly defining that to whomever you're working with, right? And so I think that's something that anybody can learn along the way too. So I think that's kind of a fun little side note that I've noticed with AI.
It's interesting because you do get better with the delegation and kind of conveying your ideas and going 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And it does help you when you talk with your team because you refine this idea so many times in the middle of the night, going back and forth with several models, seeing which one is the one that works the best. And from your perspective, it sounds like you're very positive about it, even for the junior editor position. Yeah, you're going to cut that one, but you're going to jump to the next one because you can do 4 or 5 tools now, and that definitely changes your position, changes your pay grade and everything. So yeah, that position might go away, but this one is the one that is opening up. And there is, I think people, it's the little things. For example, I use DaVinci to do the video cuts of these things. DaVinci has AI and color correction, removing the husses, removing all these little. Before that was chopping up piece by piece and finding the silences, and then it cut too much. It cuts the beginning of the word. It sounds awkward that. No one enjoyed that. No one enjoyed doing those
hours of time that you've saved. Hours.
Yeah. And I also use Opus clips when it comes to creating the shorts from this. You do go back and forth to do the edits a little bit because sometimes you want it at 30 seconds and it's 30 something, so you want to kind of make it. But the hours it would take someone to sit and just listen to 5, 6 times to the same podcast to find the questions, to cut them, to move them. No one enjoyed that. It's good when you see it and you have the win, but it's good that we have these AI tools because I've seen it for myself, at least, because I still do these things. I enjoy it more because the really bad stuff, I don't have to do anymore. Those edits is basically improved dramatically with AI. Now, the final piece that you were mentioning there was these things that they help you, delegate better and be better as a leader as an entrepreneur. When we look at your philosophy for entrepreneurship, one of the stuff that you mentioned off camera was that you were super proud of and happy is since 2019 you haven't fired anyone. How does someone implement or start to think in that type of a philosophy?
Yeah, and I'll tell you that in the past I've been a very bad leader. So that's in general in marketing, every 2 years it's somebody's looking for another job, looking to go to where they want to go. So since 2019, we've had no turnover at all. We've just added to our team, and I think that's really important. I mean, we made it through COVID. There was a bonding that happened, I believe, too. But ultimately, it's like we've been trying to look at other like people, like where they want to go, right? Like our team members, where do they want to go? How can they expand? And I would be happy if they want to go take a leadership role somewhere else. 100% support them doing that. And I think that's also what keeps them is that like not every week, but we do try to do one-on-ones with everybody, and they have open access to have that to talk about anything. It could be about their relationships or finances or planning to buy a house or something like that. I think that's a very unique thing that we do offer on our team, and that's something that I didn't realize how much team members crave that, and so I think that's something that maybe a secret weapon. If you have a business and you have team members, like ask them if they would like to have a one-on-one. And it's not about work. Like the one-on-one is not about their job, how they can be better, or anything else like that. It is not that way. It is about whatever they want to talk about, and like whatever advice you can give them. And so, I mean, there's limitations of what advice you want to give in some cases, but like, those are things that I think that just having that internal communication. Now, I have shifted my overall way that I look at business leadership too, and I think that's helped a little bit because everybody wants to have a family business where you feel like everybody's family but I think Leila Hamosi, I think I heard her articulate it the best way.
Yeah.
Was like, she's like, you have a family, you can't fight your family, right? But a baseball team, like, you can trade a player because you want to win and they can win better on another team. There is that side of things too, like where you have to look at it in both ways. You want to have that camaraderie, you want to have that family atmosphere, but you also want to have the ability where they're not like anybody in your team, including myself, doesn't like drop the ball, right? And it's like you want everybody to be at their peak performance. You want to empower them to do what they can do. You want them to make their own decisions. I mean, there's different decisions in every business, but like empowering people to make those like customer service decisions, or, spend more time on something because they want to, without like, because there's certain things where you're going to lose money, but there is a certain part where you're like, you want that perfection. And if they want to do that or learn something, you have to encourage that. And I think that's something that is a little bit different than some of the corporate culture that's been out there. I think we've been very, very neutral on politics and things like that in general, because I mean that's something that does sway, and it's like there's a lot of polarization that happens there, but it's something that I think we're all people, and we all have to understand that we can work together and we can make something bigger together as well, as long as we have open communication.
Right. And when you were saying, and I remember the Leila Hermosi video where she was saying that you want a team of champions because champions win, and family, that kind of idea is for a small mom and pop shop where you need to kind of cover a bunch of stuff, and if something happens, it's okay. But once you want to grow, you need a team of champions, and that was like the mentality she was saying. Some of the stuff that you're looking at when giving them space to do more testing and learning and stuff like that. What happens, or how do you go about if you do all the right steps and someone quits?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, in the past, I think I've looked at myself as like, well, I'm a failure as a leader if somebody quits, right? But that's not the right way to look at it. If you are doing what you're supposed to do as a leader, like, that's actually a good thing. Like you're helping them self-identify if this is the right place or not. If it's not, that's totally fine. I mean, I learned this when I was working with a really big law firm. I think they bill like $3 billion a year. I mean, really big, and they're all over the country. And they had all sorts of attorneys that had left, and then they come back. Like they went and took a political position, or they went and took a board seat over here, or they did some other role, and they looked at it like, okay, we're actually expanding our reach by doing that. So if you have a good relationship with your team, I think that's something that will come back and help you, because you don't know if that person that just quit might become a CMO of a company that all of a sudden needs your services, and they hire you because of the way that you worked with them, or the way that you understood that they needed to go and earn more money, or they needed more flexibility with their job, or they needed, more paid time off, or I mean, there's all sorts of reasons. But if you don't have that communication, you don't know, So, I mean, I certainly don't want our whole team to leave, but I want them all to be in the best place for them, right? And hopefully our team is in the right place 100% of the time. But we know that circumstances change in life, and I think as leaders, you have to be okay with that. I think if you weren't doing the right things and you were suppressing them and holding them back, and just, because there's a lot of that toxicity out there as well, where you're holding somebody down so they can't knock you off of your position, then you're going to have an enemy, right? A serious enemy, and they're never going to forget that. So, I mean, there's definitely things that you should not do ever.
Yeah. I think there was 48 laws of power. One of them there was that, if you go all the way, you go all the way to the end, because otherwise you will create someone that will have this vengeance. And he uses like a story, I think it was like in feudal China or Japan, where two brothers, one didn't end the brother basically, and the guy always had a grudge against him his entire life. And then when the tide changed, he didn't forgive him. So once I read that story, I was like, you know what? I have a different perspective with how all this works, because you don't go that way, because that way always ends in that way. Ended on a positive end. To what you were saying, it did happen to me where an employee left, and I think like a year later, I see a call with him. I'm like, oh, let's see what happened and if I can help him in any shape or form. Shows up on the call from a different job. The owner is there. Let's talk about LinkedIn outreach. I was like, oh, I didn't know we're doing that today. And it did work out, because when we parted ways, it was everything positive. So I always take this approach, and I think it's definitely the right one. Now, when we talk about the failures you did in the past and what you've learned, what are some of the shifts that you would see an entrepreneur has to have, whether that be mindset or how they operate, when they go from small to medium to large, like working with maybe multiple startups at a specific point?
Yeah, well, you got a lot to unpack on that one right there. So ultimately, systems, right? I've not always, my personality is not one that always loves systems, but I know that things are more effective when they're there. Early on, okay, if you're in that 3 to 5 employee space, it's much harder. You can't delegate a lot. You have to do much more. You have to be more well-rounded. And if you'd been around me a little bit, you'd know that I do not endorse being well-rounded. I think that you should know what your strengths are, and you should 100% push in where you're strong, because every battle in all of time or war or whatever if they push all their troops into where they're winning, they win. That's it. There's not an exception in that. And so push in, be the best. If you're the best, everybody's going to come to you. So top 10%, they get all the notoriety, they get all the money, they get all the accolades, right? So that's where you need to be. So focus on that. So if you're just trying to be comfortable, just trying to make a living, and that's it, be ready to have a lot of shift in your life, because you're either growing or you're dying. There's you can't just kind of hang in one spot very long. And especially in a marketing business or things like that, you really understand, it's you're either growing or you're going down. It's never this easy, oh yeah, we have this whole 25-year planned out. It does not work that way. Entrepreneurism does not work that way, but it takes extra time. And I think that the reward of being your own boss is huge. Sometimes people should not be their own boss. And I'll say one more thing on relationships. If you're in a relationship and the other partner is not on board with that, you have to decide if that relationship is valuable enough to you to continue down the entrepreneurship road or not. Because if you don't have a supporting spouse, forget it. It's going to be a really, really difficult road. It's because as an entrepreneur, you might have to work 20 hours in one day. You might have to do it, and it's just what it is. Sometimes you get that time where you're able to take a week off, but it's one of those things that you don't always know. You put good systems in, you have great team members, you trust people, that's a big thing. Then you're going to have a better way to get to the next level. You're going to start hire. Now, here's something I would say is really, really valuable. Figure out what you need, right? Put the skill set down, then hire for that person. Because too often as a young business, you have 3 to 5 people, you need to get to 10, you need 10 people, a friend of a friend, a family member, somebody else, and they're not necessarily the right fit for your needs. So you start to craft your services to that person you just hired, but that's not the vision of where you're supposed to be going. And so that can kind of derail your success. So hire for what you actually need, write it down and hire that person. So, and that might be somebody you don't know. So that's something else I would say is really important. Now, getting to the next level, and the next level, I mean, it gets a little bit easier. Get good advisors around you always. Like, I mean, there are a ton of people out there that are willing to give you free advice. Now, everybody says free advice isn't worth anything. That's not true. There's tons of entrepreneurs out there and leaders out there that never get asked for advice. They never do. And if you said, hey, would you mentor me for a year or 3 months, or and just like half hour a month, or whatever they're open to, right? Let's have a coffee once a quarter, let's have a meetup once a year, something like that. And you can ask them and have a list of questions and say, I'm going to be asking you these. This is something it's really important to me. Frame it in the right way. You'll have a friend forever. Like, people want to, like, they do not get asked for their advice. I think it was The Richest Man in Babylon, great book if nobody's read it. But the lender was like, nobody ever comes to me to ask for advice about money. They always just want my money. It's like, but he's like, since you gave me advice, I'm going to lend to you as well. So I think Pitbull has a song about that too. Yeah. Ask for advice, get paid twice. But I think that there's some great things there. Ask for advice. Go to people that are the next layer of where you want to be. Surround yourself with winners, not losers. I mean, there's all sorts of, sayings like, if you hang out, with turkeys, you're never going to soar like the eagles type of thing, but yeah, I think that's something that's really important. Surround yourself with excellence, surround yourself with great people. Bad company is never good to be in forever. So that's something that's easier to be pulled down than it is to be pulled up, for sure.
It's a good way to kind of like a reminders, because when it comes to like the one that once I started doing this, the one that was the most afraid was how will my wife kind of go through this whole process with me. Luckily, she has the same entrepreneurial spirit, so she has her own business, and it all worked out really, really good. So that was like my main fear, because you don't want to sacrifice. You're doing it for the right reasons. You're doing it for the family. You're doing it for a life that you want to have with your family, but at what cost, at what sacrifice? And I never wanted to sacrifice that. So once everything started, I'm like, this is working really well. Everyone is super happy. And then I see some other people like, yeah, my wife doesn't like what I do, or the hours, like, it kills me to not go to my kid's soccer game or my daughter's dance recital. I couldn't go. With time, I started to balance all these things, and because you start to notice that some people are very blinded by what they want to achieve, and then they will say like, this is my goal, my mission, and then, well, you can put it like a 3-hour break and just go watch the recital and then come back to it. Like, nothing's going to happen. That email can be replied 4 days later or 3 days later. Like, if it's a real opportunity, it doesn't just like evaporate like out of thin air. It doesn't really work like that. Tell the person, I'll get back to you in 2 days. I'm going to take a 3-day vacation with the family. These are the stuff that I noticed people weren't willing to sacrifice, but they were willing to sacrifice other things to kind of keep growing and pushing. And I think it's definitely true to ask people to be your mentor. I've asked some of my clients that like make 15 million a year. I've like, these numbers were just impossible in my mind. And as I ask them questions, no problem. They tell you like, look, focus on profitability. You can't eat valuations. Like, all of these things, all of a sudden someone tells you, and they're like, I can just ask. Yes, and it's exactly like you said. No one asks them. And Richest Man in Babylon is a fantastic book. I always quote it now, like, thicken the purse. Always thicken the purse.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a fantastic book. Now, yeah. Will, if people listen to this and they're like, wow, this is fantastic, and they want to work with you, how did they get hold of you to work with you?
Easy. I'm very attainable. Just go to garlicmediagroup.com. If you hit the contact us button, I will for sure get it at some point. So it'll get pushed to me, but like ask for me. I'm happy to have a consult with almost anybody, So, I think I love to pour into people. I would say the other thing too is I'm going to be interviewing a lot of successful people that I know, and it's a new podcast right now called Regenerative Inspiration. So go find us, on Spotify, on YouTube, anywhere, Facebook, LinkedIn, all those different things. Find me on LinkedIn, friend me. Please put something in the line on LinkedIn because I get like 40 invites a day, and unfortunately, like I want to like add everybody, but then the next line is, "Hey, I want to have a meeting with you to sell you something." I'm like, if I love being sold, to be honest, I do, but tell me why I should be sold. So tell me something. Don't just like friend me and say, "Hey, I think we'd be, whatever." But anyway, so it's like I think that there's a lot of ways to get a hold of me. I'm happy to talk to anybody, and especially if somebody is trying to grow and be better. 100%. It's this world is too short. All we have is really our experiences and relationships. So that's what's important to me.
Amazing, Will, and thanks so much for the time. This was fantastic. I learned a lot, so we'll should definitely keep in touch, and I wish all the success.
Great. Hey, thank you. Have a great day.